As if this customer's truck wasn't one issue after another enough with this rotted out stuff, wiring harnesses, blah, blah, blah. Check out this crazy stuff that just happened. All right, so we already had this truck in the air for diag, then pulled it back out, had appointments to do. Brought it back in, and at the end of the day yesterday, we had this truck up in the air for a few hours, getting the tank down, rust, wiring. Put it back up in the air today. It's been in the air, say, an hour. Boom. This tire just falls down. Check out that ball joint. Ball sheared from stud. This is something I see most commonly on Dodge trucks. This one does have a 2-inch lift on it with nothing special added to the suspension besides a high articulation CV axle, which we did ourselves because it pulled out and ground out the front diff stub shaft. Ball joints have been replaced in the last 2 years with Moog Premium. So Jamie's just sitting here and it goes da-dunk, and he's like, what the heck was that? And this is what happened. So he walks away. I'm down here a half hour later and it goes da-dunk on the other side. Look at that. Both upper ball joints, not that old. You can see they're pretty clean. I assume there was a stress crack in both of the ball joints and it just gave from the weight of the vehicle hanging, which it shouldn't do that from just whatever amount of weight that is. That means there was already previously some stress cracks or something in the ball joint. But here's the story. A few months back, they went off-roading, losing control a little bit, and went into a ditch, causing this damage. And it's just your basic shipbox truck, moving trailers, stuff like that, little side vehicle for when things need hauled. But I'm assuming when they went in the ditch, some stress was formed on the ball joints and they just slowly started shearing themselves, and they were barely attached until we put it in the air. Not to mention, anytime this has ever happened to me, I think it happened to me once with a Chevy truck where I lifted it up and the ball joint just went da-dunk. But every other time I see sheared ball joints like this, it's pretty much always on a Dodge. But it's just crazy that we put it in the air, one side does it, and it wasn't until the third time we lifted it up. And then a half hour later, the other side does it. So now on top of all the stupid issues that happened with the other job we're doing, now we get this. Now, if this wasn't a customer that 100% trusted me, longtime customer, it could be one of those situations where they're like, how did my ball joint just all of a sudden pop out? Blah, blah, blah. And then we got to eat the cost or listen to them complain or drop them as a customer and say, well, just go somewhere else if you don't trust us. But this kind of stuff does happen. You got it at a shop for one issue and then something else comes up. I can think of 150 different examples that have happened over the years. Like you do a brake line and the starter goes out. We didn't touch the starter. This kind of stuff just happens. So remember, whenever you go into a ditch or any crazy stuff happens, it's always good to get an inspection. But if there was no play in those ball joints and it had a stress crack, that's nothing we're going to be able to see. They're covered with boots and grease. So even if we did inspect it, how are we supposed to know there's a stress crack that's going to go in 3 months, after going into a ditch? It's just stuff you can't predict. Then besides going in a ditch or not having the aftermarket lifted control arms that is recommended, with a kit, or there's plenty of lift kits. There's different ways. You got axle extenders and blah, blah, blah. We have struts that are leaking. You can see they're worn out, and that's going to be less friendly to the ball joint over time as well. So that can stress the ball joint as well. Here we go. We got the tire off, and here's your ball joint. So we're going to, we do not want this taper to spin in here. Then, we're gonna have to saw the nut off if that happens. First thing I'm gonna do is heat up this nut so it spins off real easily. Hit it with the impact, and you can't get an impact on it. That's why you want universal. Probably use one of our Olsa Tools swivelers. I also have the Harbor Freight brand swivelers here. Highly recommend both. They work good. We'll put that on the impact and go while the nut's hot. And then once the nut's off, you take your air chisel and go to get this out. It's a situation I've ran into plenty of times on Dodges. Oh yeah, by the way guys, we got this fuel tank repaired. It's locked in tight and seems to be holding. We got the rust converter in there, you know, just to so it doesn't keep rotting away, because if you lose all these ears, that fuel pump's not going to be secured anymore. This vehicle is just for hauling boats out of their water, and you know, just whenever they need a truck for hauling stuff, hardware store, whatever, gets ran once every 2 weeks or less. So that'll do.